So we got married in July of 2012, and I was really happy. I think we both were. I thought I had the world. I thought my marriage was great. We both had good jobs. I had become materialistic in the fact that I thought that the world was offering me things that I desired, and I was still a Christian. I taught Sunday school. I went to church every week. Rob was in the worship team. We were very involved in our church. Almost 3 years into our marriage, I found out that he was unfaithful, that he was lying about a lot of things. My world of materialism and my world of idols that I had created, because I had made Rob an idol. I had made, the things of this world an idol. They came crashing down, like where I had nothing left except Jesus.
When we first got married, it was awesome. It was something that we were both happy. I was really happy. Well, about 10 months in, I started to get some feelings and some insecurities and felt some rejection and just a lot of thoughts and concerns, and a bunch of stuff was just going on in my head and in my heart. I didn't tell anybody about it. Part of the reason for that was because I felt like I had this persona that I had made that I had to keep up with. People had called us like, oh, that's like the world's best couple, and they look so happy, and they're so perfect and all that stuff. And I think that really got to my head and got to my heart. And when I started feeling these bad feelings and all the stuff that was in my head, I didn't feel like I could go to anybody. Eventually, I needed to find an escape somewhere because I just couldn't take it anymore. And where I eventually escaped was to pornography. That eventually wasn't good enough and led me down a road that I never thought I would have ended up going. But ultimately, I ended up being unfaithful to Amanda. When this all broke on May 5th of 2015, it was just a normal day of work for me, and Amanda came home, and then later that night she found some things on my phone, and that's kind of how I got exposed. But to find out later that Amanda really said that she heard from God that day driving home, to go home, your husband's being unfaithful to you, and that's not a thought that really ever crossed Amanda's mind. So for her to have that was totally just God saying, you know what, I'm done with you hurting my daughter. But along that same side, he's ready to open his arms and really just say, I love you so much. And that's really what I had to hold on to. It was the only thing I had to hold on to, because everything else was now gone. From that moment, I went from thinking that I was good to losing everything, losing her and our dog, and my best friend was her brother, and her family that I just adored, and everything was just gone in that split second. All I had left was to live in his mercy and grace.
So when this all went down, I immediately left. I mean, I was just a mess, and not eating, not sleeping, just a mess. And the only thing that made me feel better was spending time with Jesus, like hours upon hours a day. I would be hanging out with people, and I would sneak away for 5 minutes to just read my Bible so I could survive a couple extra minutes. And it was so interesting because although I was in excruciating pain, I felt God's nearness and his faithfulness like I have never before. One sermon that I heard, it was the parable of the fig tree, and it was about how this man was taking care of the vineyard. This is in Luke. The fig tree was dying, and it had been dying for 3 years, and he's like, I'm not taking care of it anymore. And what's interesting about that is that that's how long we had been married, almost to the T. And he's like, I'm not taking care of it anymore, cut it down, which is how I felt about our marriage. I was like, cut it down, I'm done. The vineyard owner said, give it a year, we'll fertilize it, we'll take care of it, and if in a year it doesn't produce fruit, then you can cut it down. And I just felt so clearly that God was speaking to me, like, give it a year. Because, in the hurt and in the excruciating pain, you make rash decisions. And I read a statistic somewhere that 80% of people who, like, their marriage is in crisis, if they get divorced within that first year, that they regret it. I just felt it was such God's kindness to me to say a year. And I was like, I can give it a year before I make a decision of what I'm going to do. So even though I felt like God was saying you should go to counseling, I didn't want to do it. And I had a bad attitude about it. And I still thought we were getting divorced. And I entered into it like more like closure, like this is closure.
Her first words in counseling was, I don't want to be here. So that was really difficult even just to hear at that point. But I was just so thankful that we were even in the same room.
It was very gradual. It was, at first, it was just show up to counseling. And then it was like, okay, we'll meet for coffee or we'll do this. And initially I was like, I'm not doing that. And then like 2 weeks later, I'd be like, okay, I'll do it.
And actually what was really cool about our first coffee experience was we went to a Starbucks and, her body language was very like, I don't want to be here. And I fully understood that and accepted that it was probably going to be like that for a long time. But what was so cool is during us hanging out at Starbucks, the Good Father song came on from Chris Tomlin. And first of all, what in the world is that doing playing at Starbucks? But that was like Amanda's song at that moment. Like that was her song that she was holding on to and clinging on to. And it was such a really cool experience.
It was just like, I'm here, like God saying, I'm here. Like I'm journeying with you throughout this whole thing. I know that this is hard, but I'm here. I remember talking about it later. People were like, how'd it go? And I was like, who cares? Like I felt like God was just saying, like, I'm here with you. And I felt that was bigger than us having coffee. Eventually our counselor like challenged us to start praying together and start sharing like something from our quiet times together. It wasn't like an overnight thing. Like I know God had like said give it a year, but I wound up taking more than that. But around that year point, my heart started to get softened and we were spending more time together. I could just see some differences and it made me want to buy into our marriage again.
My main root issue was really that the approval of all the people that were around me was my number one thing. And I wanted anybody and everybody to like me, and I needed it. But really what that was a gigantic God-shaped hole in my heart. And where that ended up bringing me was doing whatever it took and saying whatever it took to get those people around me to like me. And, that root took hold and spread from there and really caused really great devastation. Since
moving back in, we wound up renewing our vows over the summer. Our desire for our marriage is just completely different now, and it's just all about what we can do for God's kingdom and who we can help through our story, but also through His ministry with men and my ministry with women.
It's unbelievable what God has done in these last 2.5 years. Today actually marks 2 years and 8 months of not only us or me and my relationship with God, but my sobriety from sexual addiction as well. There's nothing perfect about our marriage at all.
We're still in counseling.
Yeah, and we don't even look at it like, oh no, we have to go to counseling. This is like, we look forward to going to counseling because it allows us to have a different perspective, and it allows us to just continue to be real instead of trying to put up some sort of facade.